And if it's not doing you any good, then why are you doing it?
I got a glitch.
Hello everyone and welcome back. It's Ash, your truth-bombing fairy godmother for everything love, dating, and relationships. For today's video, I really wanted to explore a question that I was asked a lot on my two previous videos, which is, how do you know when it's time to leave a relationship? Or how did I know when it was time to leave my relationship? And through sharing some more of my experience, hopefully I can provide some of you watching with a bit of your own clarity if this is something that you're currently debating yourself, or perhaps you've already made the choice to break up with your partner and you're wondering whether or not you made the right decision. But first, if you think you could benefit from new love, dating, and relationship videos every single week, or simply want to watch me have emotional breakdowns just like I did last week, then please consider subscribing to my channel by tapping that button below. And just quickly on that note, I just want to say thank you so much to every single one of you who reached out on either of my last two videos. The internet can be a really scary place sometimes, and it can be really terrifying to share so much of yourself online, especially when you're already in a really fragile state. But my God, the love, empathy, compassion, understanding, and support that I've gotten from all of you has been completely overwhelming. I am so blessed and humbled to have every single one of you here. Thank you. Also, just a quick disclaimer before I dive into this video. If you have relationship anxiety or relationship OCD, please do not watch this video. It is impossible to make clear, confident decisions regarding exiting a relationship if you have clinical anxiety or OCD. So with peace and love, please leave. This video is not for you. Anyway, as I've shared in my previous videos, I was the one who ultimately made the choice to walk away from my 8.5, almost 9-year relationship. And I've gotten a ton of questions regarding this, and specifically how I knew that walking away from my relationship was the right choice. So firstly, what I want to do is expel this idea that there is a right or a wrong choice. I certainly believe that there are decisions or choices that can be more loving for us or less loving for us, or more serving for us or less serving for us. But I really don't like this notion of right or wrong. But if we must go with this idea, I think what ultimately makes something the right choice for us is that that is what we chose for ourselves. That's really all it comes down to. And I think we need to learn to become really empowered in that reality, that what makes something the right decision for us is the fact that, for better or for worse, that is what we chose. And further, no matter what we chose, there will be a sequence of events and resulting consequences that will always follow. And whatever it is you choose doesn't need to make sense to anyone else other than yourself. And regardless of what decision you make, there will be lessons that follow, and perhaps you will reflect and think maybe you could have done something different or better. But again, regardless of what choice you make, you will have that reflection process regardless. Now, onto the specifics when it comes to deciding whether or not it is the right or most loving choice to end a relationship. Because if there's anyone who understands how big of a decision that is to make, it's me. And I don't want it to come across as though I'm being frivolous when it comes to dealing with yours or someone else's heart. I'm not. I understand the immensity and gravity of that choice and how difficult it is to make. However, I think the answer can actually be quite simple. And Rising Woman shared my exact thoughts when it comes to answering this question on her Instagram page recently. And she said, in addition to asking, should I end my relationship, also ask, do we both truly want this relationship? Have we both demonstrated willingness to be accountable for our own emotions, behaviors, and wounds? And then she follows that up with, No one outside of you can tell you what's right for you. Sometimes we don't need to end it. We need to do the work, with the caveat that both partners must want the same thing. And there was some further engagement and conversation in the comment section of this post where Shalina, the woman behind Rising Woman, specified that putting in the work is not applicable to relationships that are abusive or obviously toxic, which I 100% agree with, of course. But there are other valid reasons for someone to choose to no longer invest in a relationship that don't include abuse or overt toxicity. Just as no one else can decide for you whether or not ending a relationship is the right choice, no one else can decide for you what is considered a valid enough reason to walk away. Just because your partner is a good person or the relationship isn't inherently bad doesn't mean that it is a good relationship for you. My ex as an individual is a lovely person, but our relationship and our dynamic together as a couple was no longer nurturing for me. My ex and I's relationship was full of a lot of love and happiness for a really long time, and I did so much healing in that relationship that I am so truly grateful for. But as we grew up and matured, our needs changed, and we couldn't meet each other's needs anymore without also trying to fundamentally change who each of us had become as humans. Our energies, our natural state of being, what brought us comfort and joy and peace, what made us feel at home, what motivated us in life, all became so drastically different as we evolved into more mature adulthood. And I just felt like we had reached the end of our journey of growth together. And I'm absolutely not saying under any circumstance that a partner can or should be able to fulfill every single one of our needs all the time. But that really baseline stuff of just feeling safe and comfortable and relaxed and wanted and desired are needs that I think should be met most of the time. And sadly, that became less and less the case for my partner and I. I felt like I was treated as some type of project as opposed to being really seen and loved for who I was. And as a result, I stopped being able to feel fully relaxed and calm and at peace in my partner's presence. The way we related to one another was like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It just didn't fit. And although toxic is a really strong word, continuing to exist in a dynamic that just wasn't working or serving either of us at our core was in a way a type of toxicity. It wasn't doing either of us any good. And if it's not doing you any good, then why are you doing it? And for me, after 9 years together, I felt I had gathered enough information about both of us to be able to decide that I didn't think any more work would result in a lasting, fulfilling, loving relationship for either of us. Without changing who we fundamentally were as people, which neither of us could have done, even if we wanted to, I just knew that we were going to find ourselves in the exact same cycle over and over and over again. And that was not something I wanted for myself or my future self anymore. And that brings me to my final and yet potentially most important point here, which is the willingness that Rising Woman also emphasized in her post. Is this relationship, as opposed to the potential of this relationship or the potential of this person, something that you really want? Do you have the willingness to genuinely and authentically fight for this relationship? And for me, being too scared to answer this question honestly is what I think initially kept me from making my decision to leave. Because of my really strong core belief, which I still very much have, that all relationships do require work and effort and there is no such thing as the perfect partner, I really struggled to admit to myself that the willingness to keep fighting for this relationship was no longer there. What did that mean about me? Oh my God, does this make me a terrible person? Doesn't leaving go against my values? Doesn't that make me a hypocrite or a quitter? Aren't you just meant to keep working at it when you make a commitment to someone? And on and on and on it went. My own self-judgment kept me from admitting that the willingness to keep at it was no longer there. Despite deep down my inner wisdom knowing that it was likely time to tap out. And just as Rising Woman said, that genuine want has to be there on both sides. If you are just going through the motions because you feel like it's what you should do or what your partner thinks you should do or your family or your wider community or whatever, you are doing yourself and your partner a huge disservice. And that doesn't mean that you have to be excited about doing the work. Very few people are going to feel excited about hard, grueling, often very painful inner and interpersonal work. But the desire to do it has to be there. Doing the work simply to save face or because you are too scared to admit the reality of where you are at is, I think, really selfish and really cowardly. And that was something I had to be honest with both myself and my partner about once we tried couples therapy together. So it was either drag myself and my partner through this process so that I could feel good about myself or satisfy some future potential peace of mind for myself so that I could sleep well at night knowing that I gave it everything I could or I fought the good fight despite all the while knowing that that genuine willingness hadn't been there the entire time, or walk away when I did so that both me and my partner could heal sooner rather than later and eventually find people that each of us feel truly at home with. I cannot and could not inauthentically put myself or someone that I love through a process that I know deep down in my heart that I am no longer committed to. And if that makes me look like an asshole or like I didn't try or that I gave up on my relationship despite knowing that I poured every ounce of my heart and soul into it for the past 9 years, then I guess that makes me an asshole. But you know what? I'd rather be an asshole that's living their truth than someone who appears to be good on the surface, but denies the reality of where they're at and wastes everyone's time in the process. And finally, this is something that I mentioned in my initial video, but something that I think is important to reiterate again, which is that despite having that conviction that I've made the most loving choice for myself by leaving my relationship, I think it would be really foolish of me to think that there is zero chance that that could ever change. It is entirely possible that I could wake up one day and feel as though I made a big mistake. But I can only do the best that I can with the information that I have right now. And let me tell you, finding the balance between living in the present while also considering potential future consequences of my actions or my decisions has been a really difficult challenge for me as a naturally anxious person. But I have found that the best way to really honor myself and lean into that inner bodily wisdom that I've worked really hard to cultivate throughout my 20s is to just trust where I'm at right now, combined with relevant data and evidence that I have observed from history. I cannot make decisions based on how I may or may not feel down the road. I will cripple myself with my own fear and anxiety if I choose to live my life that way. So I'm choosing not to. What's the acronym for fear? I think it's like false evidence appearing real. Don't quote me on that. But anticipating potential future regret is false evidence because it hasn't happened yet. And I would much rather make decisions based on what I know or what I think I know or what I have observed or experienced so far than some false evidence that may or may not ever eventuate. So I hope this video was able to provide you with some clarity on how to know when it's time to leave your relationship, or how I knew when it was time for those of you who were curious. But overall, that willingness and desire to keep coming home to your partner has to be there. And it's okay to not have that willingness anymore, or to recognize that your partner is no longer the most loving home for you. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a quitter. It makes you brave and honest and authentic and unwilling to settle for less than what you deserve, and less than what your partner deserves as well. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this, so please feel free to share in the comment section down below. And also, just a heads up, I will likely not be uploading over the next 2 weeks because I will be taking a little getaway to somewhere remote and there's no Wi-Fi. So I might try and record something before I go, but no promises. I will play it by ear. But until next time, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon.
Tell me what was in that stuff you gave me. I think I like it. In fact, it made me high pitched.